This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango, joined by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. Gentlemen. The podcast brought to you by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. So last week, I remembered to shout out Jeff. I remembered our sponsor twice, but then only broke once when we need to break twice.
God. What is this amateur hour?
Oh, that's what it is, buddy. That's completely what it is. It is amateur hour. If you're putting me in charge of it, that's what you got.
This is what you get with Donnie Fandango.
I fell over work last week. We didn't get two breaks.
I know. Jared was like, I didn't get a water break in here. What's going on here, guys?
Mike Ryder came into the studio afterwards, and I was like, man, I felt like the podcast was good. We got everything taken care of. Bing, bang, boom. And he came in and was like, hey, I only saw one break. And I was God dang it, man. I can't just remember everything.
You got all the responsibility.
If I screw it up again, I'm making a checklist for the next podcast.
You know what? I'm not going to do this if you need it, Don. I'm just going to be like, everybody, we need a break. We need a break.
Very good. Very good. Well, guys, it is the eve of the 2025-2026
It's here.
season. It is finally here. I have legitimately been pining for this ever since 2 days after Game 7 of the Winnipeg series. Like, it felt like the longest summer of all time, including like the finals. Like, respect to those Panthers, they deserve to win. But like, just as that series was going on, I was just like, God, I just want this to be over, because I knew summer. Bing, bang, boom, and we're here, man. We're here. So, almost ready.
JR's got a big smile on his face because he knows that the season is finally here. I'm ready to go. It's just like, that's those 6 preseason games, and I guess I shouldn't complain too much because the last couple of years they've had 8, they've had 7. 6 is pretty nice, and there were no back-to-backs except the first 2. But once you play like 3 of them, it's like, could we just move on with it? Yeah. And that's from guys that are like broadcasting it or writing it or watching it. Imagine what the players are feeling to where it's like, can we just be done with this? Like 4 next year to me is going to be so nice, where you've got a couple of games where it looks like an NHL roster, couple of games where you get some of those prospects in and you get to see what they look like. And then we just get on with it. Now, 84 games versus 82, that one will be interesting to see.
Yeah, we just got to get the season started in September and get that cup awarded before June.
Yeah, the problem is they'll start it in September, and we'll still award it late June and be like, oh, I don't know what happened.
But the reason that is going to be the case is, well, wait, no, because that'll be next year, not this year. I was thinking with Olympic play.
Yeah, but they're still going to have that break for the Worlds, right? Is that next year, or is it the 4 nations again?
Yeah, it's going to flip every couple of years.
So they're still going to have that in-season break. I don't know if it's going to be as long as the Olympics, where it's like 3.5 weeks, but they're still going to have that break. That's not what it used to be with the All-Star break.
And I'm sorry that I'm asking this right now, and I know it's...
You should be.
Can we just kill the All-Star game as we know it? Like, can we just not do that anymore?
Having been to about 6 or 7 of them, I'd say.
I've only been to one, and I saw the one that was in St. Louis, and I'm like, I'm good. This was fun.
I love hockey so much, and I could just give a crap less. And I appreciate what they tried to do, making it 3-on-3 and the tweaks and all those sorts of things. But like, I'm out on it. And then also, too, I am just deathly afraid that one of our guys or a great player in the league is going to get hurt in that particular exhibition. And it's just nothing that I want to see.
Well, it would have to be a muscle twitch or something, because it's not going to be a hit.
That's true. That's very true.
That's very true. Those All-Star games need to turn into like prospect tournaments or something like that, you know? Like they need to just bring the guys in the AHL and let them do a showcase for fans. Those All-Star games, like the skills competition is probably the more entertaining part of it.
Right.
But even the skills competition's kind of gotten watered down, to say the least. So I would much rather see the minor league guys that are All-Stars go out there and perform than watch the NHL guys that don't even really want to be doing it.
Yeah. So it is going to be interesting, though, this NHL season and schedule, because of that Olympic break. You're going to definitely have spans in this season where there is going to be a lot of hockey played in a short period of time. You know, one of the things that we have talked about, and we've got some great emails that I want to get to here in a second. But one of the things that we've talked about on the podcast, I know that I've heard folks talking about it in the last couple of days, but it is absolutely crucial and critical for this Blues team to come out firing. There is, I'm probably not, I don't think I'm wrong here, guys, but like, you can't afford to put yourself in any kind of hole in the Western Conference. And they should be too dang good to be doing that in the first damn place, but they really do need to come out of the gate swinging, right?
They really do. And I'm going to preface it by saying, something that we all three know. Like, you could say that about every team in every sport in every city. You got off to get to a good start. But no, you're right. And I want to just preface it by saying that, but follow it up with this. It is important for this team, like you're saying, for a multitude of reasons. You got to piggyback off the success that you had at the end of last year. You got to show that progression is still going up, and now you're not going to take a step back. Jim Montgomery is there from day one. They had a great camp. Show what the results of that are with a start in October and November. You don't want to put yourself in a position to have to win 12 in a row down the stretch to climb back into the hunt. Also, you don't want to be a situation in January where it's like, okay, things aren't going well. Do we want to bring up Dvorsky and Stenberg and put them in a situation where it's probably not the best, for them to be around? No, you got to get off to this good start. You got to show that things are trending in the right direction. Put Doug Armstrong in a spot where he's looking to add to the roster, and ride the momentum that you had last year. So while it is imperative for, every team to get off to a good start, I think you could put a pretty long list together why it's important for this Blues team.
Well, especially the look at the last 3 years. I went back and looked at this. The record overall in the last 3 years up to Thanksgiving, because Joey always says it. He's like, you don't make the playoffs by Thanksgiving, but you could be out of the playoff race by Thanksgiving. The Blues were 1 game above 500 in their last 3 years going into Thanksgiving break, which to me, look at what they've had to do the last 3 years. One of those, they were picking top 10. The other one barely missed the playoffs, but you had to go on that unprecedented run at the end of the season with Drew Bannister. And then last year you had to put together a 12-game win streak. Like, you can't be a 500 team at Thanksgiving. You've got to be 5, 6, 7, 8 games above 500 to put yourself in a decent position. The other factor into this too is look around the NHL. How many bad teams are there? Like, how many teams do you look at and you say they're going to be bottom dwellers? Chicago, maybe.
San Jose.
But man, even San Jose, because I think that too. And then I look at their roster and I'm like, you got you got 1 first overall pick, another 2nd overall pick. You've got a couple of guys that have scored 40 goals in the NHL. You've got a really good goaltender in that Oskarov. I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, but they're not going to be a team that only wins 20, 30 games and then they're out of it. So what I'm saying is, like, there's no, like in the NFL, if you start off slow, there's still a chance for you to get into the playoffs because those bottom dwellers. Baseball, it's 162 games, but there's at least 4 teams that are going to lose close to 100 games. Man, hockey, I just feel like there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that you look at and you're like, yeah, they're going to be bad. Overall, I think a lot of these teams have success. And then a third thing to add on to it, the Olympics, you mentioned it. If you don't start off hot, you're not going to be given the grace of breaks after the Olympics for guys. Guys are going to have to play through it. And that's a lot of hockey if you're thinking of Binnington or Parayko or Thomas if he makes Team Canada. So you got to start off hot by November, be in a really good position so that gives yourself a little grace at the end.
It doesn't seem as though that the Blues, that there was not a lot of roster churn here this offseason. There's a couple things going on there, a few players in, a few players out. But by and large, same guys that finished the year last year. I feel as though that, like you said, JR, you've got to prove that what was going on in the last month of the season is real, and that's who you are. You still have that to prove, right?
Yeah, I don't know that they look at it that way because, it's a new season. There are a couple new faces, even though there wasn't a lot of turnover. And a lot of times when we talk to players, whether they're, giving us the player speak or they truly, I don't know what they say, to each other behind the scenes. But they'll look at it like, hey, we've got to reset here. Last year means nothing. Braden Shen was saying that last year. But in reality, we know what's going on here. And we know that you can't show that you're a playoff team, that you took the Winnipeg Jets to the brink, should have beat them, should have played Dallas in the second round. Who knows? Maybe beat Dallas. And then all of a sudden you're 10 points out of the playoff race by November. So, I think what the players are focused on is the here and now. I think that they know that they have to have a good start. But to answer your question, I don't know that they're sitting there saying we got to prove it. I think that's us saying that.
But the continuity of the team, though, you would think would help them come out of the gate.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty strong.
Yeah, right? Especially in the top 6. I mean, that's the biggest thing to where in years past, it's always been, your best players aren't your best players the first 2 months of the season, right? A couple of years ago, Josh Levo was playing on the top line for the Blues. Like,
well, I do remember that.
I mean, like they've, and no disrespect to Josh Levo, I think he's tearing it up over in Europe these days.
Good for him.
But like that your top players were never your top players. Every last couple seasons, it was Thomas injury, or Buchnevich was injured, or Kyrou wasn't performing well, or Schenn wasn't performing well. Now, man, there's no area for excuses, because all 6 of those top guys played together in the middle of that 12-game stretch. You know, like you saw Snuggerud fit like a glove with Thomas and Buchnevich, Schenn and Kyrou and Holloway. So those are the guys that carry you in the early portions of the season. The middle portion of the season, Act 2, if you want to look at it that way, that's where those depth pieces really step up. So I do think there's going to be a sense of recognition from the players to the league of like, hey, last year wasn't just a 12-game win streak. We are a good team that's starting to make noise. It's a matter of, though, can you carry over that chemistry that you had last year, and does it still fit like it did last year?
All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want to talk about the Western Conference. I want to also talk about maybe a Blues player that we each think might surprise, might exceed expectations. I want to talk about that, and just as we kind of get things ready. But we have gotten some really great emails over the course of the last couple of days. So let's take a break here in the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Got it early.
We're going to come back with more of your listener emails. See, I'm going to learn how to do this. By the time that this is over, I'm going to be good at it. All right, we're back. Last Minute Blues podcast, and we've got some listener emails here. You can always email the podcast at lmbp@1057thepoint.com. That's lmbp@1057thepoint.com. Jared messages in. This is exactly his wording. Can any Joe Schmo go watch the Blues practice, or is that reserved for media insiders? Thanks. Love the podcast. Keep it going. I just appreciate his use of Joe Schmo.
Alex and I go, so yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm legitimately a Joe Schmo, so yes, anybody can go.
But they do have some practices that are closed. Like day of skates are probably closed to the public, but then they do have open skates at Centene, right?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here, JR, the skates at Enterprise Center, you can't go watch.
Right.
Those are closed. So anytime they skate at Centene, which is typically non-game days, those are always available to the public.
Yeah, like you said, game days are usually at Enterprise Center, but they have had some game day morning skates at Centene, which those are open. So I guess the rhyme or reason to this is at Centene, open.
Yeah.
Joe Schmoes can go, and Enterprise no, because they're not going to chase you and your kids around Enterprise Center
Right.
all morning long.
Good luck getting in.
Mark emails in, hey guys, love the show. Can one of you guys please talk to the DJ at the arena and ask him to bring back Blur's Song 2 as the victory song? It was so much fun after a win to hearing the whole barn sing woo-hoo. Okay, that's all. Let's go Blues. That's from Mark B.
What do they play now as the game?
I'm pretty sure it's the Urge.
Oh, is
song.
it? They play that one again?
I'm pretty sure.
That would make sense.
So let me throw this one at you. Let me blow your minds here, people.
Okay. If you say Country Roads, I'm ending this podcast right now.
Oh, no. I'll walk out on myself.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 100%.
Good. I'm glad somebody else is with me.
I heard that during a baseball playoff game the other day. Can we please stop with this crap? Please. Okay. But, and I even forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry. Because of West Virginia, Country Roads?
You were going to blow our mind.
Yeah, you were going to blow our mind.
You play the Urge song, the goal song, Bing, Bang, Boom, because it's like a minute, 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. And then you play Blur's Song 2.
Yeah, both of them?
Both of them.
Oh my God.
Because
way too greedy.
Both of them together, and I'm not even exaggerating, are 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That gives everybody the chance to scream during the Urge song and then to woo-hoo their asses off as they're walking out the door.
Hey, that would give people time for 2 more beers.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, and they have that fourth period party afterwards. It's the perfect place to go. I don't know. To me, I love All the Small Things by Blink-182. We established that last podcast. But now it's so overused by everybody in the NHL that it just ruins it to play at hockey games.
Wow. See, there are very few things that like ruin it for me. The Country Road thing, man, I just do not understand. And then also, and this is back a few years ago, I'm going to talk in code a bit, but when I was on Twitter still, I voiced my displeasure with Country Road and not understanding it. And there was a senior media member of St. Louis that completely jumped my ish about it. Yeah. About like, well, media people forget that fans are fans. And I'm like, Okay, dude. But like, I'm a fan, and I'm not a media guy when I'm going to a Blues game.
I think the senior media person you're speaking of jumped me as well, and I backed up my statement. Tell me why that is an exciting song to sing in the third period of a 1-goal hockey game. And his response was, the fans love it. And I said, cool, play anything for those fans, and they will love that song because that's just St. Louis. They love to sing along, right?
I'm just jealous that you guys are, if you go to the game as a fan, you're still in the seats, drinking your beer at the end of the game. I'm getting in a freight elevator with 10 other people that look like me, and we are headed down to listen to players say, well, you need to play a full 60.
Well, dude, I mean, guys, like, I don't know the best way to say this, but like, I very much appreciate your position during the games. I get what you're doing. You're working. But when I'm sitting next to you and you're working, I definitely feel like I'm in the wrong place because I'm sitting on my hands. I can't holler. And so like, I just would much prefer to sit and watch the game. And I'm thankful that that's kind of my role here because like, it's no fun up there.
I do remember.
Doug Armstrong looks so goddamn mean.
Donnie, a couple of years ago, we brought him up. I had him in the booth with me because he was doing post game, and I think it was a playoff game. I think it was against Minnesota, if I remember this correctly. Poor Donnie looked like he looked like Bobby Plager. He was pacing the back of that broadcast booth.
I remember it was a playoff game because like something happened like from the jump, and I don't remember what it was. I don't remember if it was a goal or if it was a big hit, but like I just remember I was sitting next to both of you guys, and it happened, and I was like, oh, like it was so like difficult to not just be able to friggin' scream my head off.
I wonder what it is that desensitizes us. Obviously, it's doing your job for 20
thousands of games that we've done.
But literally, Jimmy Snuggerud could bend down to a knee, whip his stick back and hit the Jumbotron, turn around and whip 120 mile an hour slap shot, and I wouldn't flinch.
And Jared's like,
what
would you say?
Yeah, like, what'd you say?
Sorry.
Where's the penis?
I still have that though, only during the playoffs. Like regular season, I don't know if I get as pumped up as I usually would as a fan.
Yeah.
Playoffs, it's still as hard for me to like not get into it that much.
Man, I mean, that thing still, I mean, it just gives me chills. All right, so this is really, honestly, this email that I got from Daniel, I think proves to me that I'm not doing the job that I need to do as one of the co-hosts of the Last Minute Blues
podcast. You didn't bring up Jeff again, did you?
No, Daniel, just the way in which that this question is phrased is something that I should have been asking you guys a while. And I know we've kind of briefly discussed this a bit, but I think Daniel hits it right on the head. Hey, Donnie, or whoever reads these, I had a question I'd like to ask on the podcast if possible. My question is, why is there so much talk about letting Dvorsky play top line minutes in the AHL and having to let him develop, / not stun his growth? But Thomas was not. Thomas was brought in and out of training camp the year we won the Cup. He played third line minutes. Average time on ice was about 13 minutes a game, played on the third line wing. So why can't we do the same with Dvorsky? Why is it so bad he gets that opportunity, but it's fine? Why is it so bad he gets that opportunity, but it's fine for Thomas? Because I'd much rather have Dvorsky on a line with Neighbors and Shin versus Joseph or Texier. Sorry for the long question, but thank you for considering it. Keep up the great work, and I'll continue tuning in once a week to listen. Thank you. That's from Daniel. Daniel, pick
me.
Yeah,
I think I've been answering.
And I know we've talked about this before. To a certain extent, but I really do feel like as we're sitting here and like debating Dvorsky, Joseph, Lucic, like, okay, I'm not trying to crap on those guys, and that was like not really a great thing to do, but seriously, when you have a guy like that supposedly has these skills, why?
So I'm just glad that I get to be whoever answers the question.
Yeah, you're
whoever answers the question.
You're to whomever it concerns.
Whoever responds to these. Yeah, I feel like it's a pretty simple answer, and Alex probably knows it too. Is Robert Thomas could not go to the American Hockey League. He either had to stay in St. Louis or go back to junior. Okay. He had done everything in junior, could not prove
4 years, won a championship, was one of the top scorers in juniors hockey.
And he's with the St. Louis Blues. So if you're the Blues, it's like, okay, do we try to, put him in that third line and let him see if he can take off with it? We can't send him to the American Hockey Leagues, or do we send him back to junior, let him tear it up, prove nothing, and so on and so forth. With Dvorsky, he came over as a European, and rules are a little bit different, and he can go to the American Hockey League. So, I mean, it's a great level of hockey. I think I saw a percentage, somebody tweeted this a couple days ago, of the 700 some odd players in the NHL this year,
Oh, I saw this.
84% of them have spent time in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage that can just jump straight to the NHL. Robert Thomas was able to do that, but in part because he could not go to the American. They might have sent him to the American Hockey League, had they had that option.
Yeah, and that he nailed it. To me, the other part of it too is Robert Thomas had done 4 years of juniors hockey. Mm-hmm. Like, he was used to this style of hockey. It's not like the rink was smaller. He was used to that style. Now, he wasn't used to the competitiveness of pro hockey, which is why you saw that first season. Thomas would spend 7 or 8 games up in the press box and sitting with Steve Ott and then go back in to play a few games. Dvorsky spent almost his first portion of his career playing pro hockey over in Europe. Smaller rink, different style. Even Stenberg addressed that, saying like there wasn't a whole lot of physicality when we played over in Sweden versus where we're at now. Dvorsky then goes to juniors, does really well. You want to let him get a little bit of a taste of North American hockey. But the Blues want and see him to be a top 6 centerman for this team. And as much as we said Robert Thomas makes a lot of sense, why does he play on the wing and not Dvorsky? Because of what JR mentioned, but they were slow playing that one with him. I think they're slow playing it with Dvorsky as well, but what's better for his development as a 10th overall pick? Putting him on a third line and letting him play 8-9 minutes at the NHL and then going up to the box for a couple of games, coming back down, or going down to the American Hockey League and playing 20 minutes a night for the Springfield Thunderbirds, power play, penalty kill, 6-on-5 at the end of hockey games. That's where I would want that player. And I also think Doug Armstrong made a really good point talking about this. Put yourself in Dvorsky's shoes. Let's say you start the season in the American Hockey League and get called up 20 games in. Where's your mindset at? Cool, I dominated it, now I get a chance to prove it. Mm-hmm. Now put yourself in the same shoes of that young kid where you play 8 games at the AHL. They just say, you know what, you're not getting the ice time, we need you to go down. Dvorsky's not thinking logically of, oh, well, they didn't get to see, they saw me and they like me, I'm going to go down and work harder. No, you go spend the next month in the American Hockey League saying, I stink, I'm never going to play in the NHL, I got to go down and never going to get... That's what you don't want to do to that kid. That's why Doug Armstrong always uses the phrase, organizations can ruin a prospect just as much as a prospect can ruin an organization. So much rather put the guy where his feet are and his mind is, mindset-wise of, I am focused on killing it in the AHL. 20 games into the season, let's say he is the top scorer in the American Hockey League, and Texier and Joseph, Lucic, none of them's worked on the third line.
And readers of The Athletic will know that in the bold predictions, I said that Dvorsky will play 30 games on the right wing this year. So
I mean, it's just the development side of it.
Yeah. I understand that. And obviously the not being able to send down thing or not being able to send Thomas down being the huge difference here. And it does make sense as far as the player development thing. The more that you explain it, the more that the fan in me goes, okay, this just makes too much sense. Like, we know you want to see the guy, but we got to do what's best for the guy. And again, though, but that does kind of put the Blues in like a pretty all right situation, because if they are playing well, maybe Joseph isn't doing great. Maybe then, I mean, there's moves here to be made. It's not as though that they're hamstrung. You know what I'm saying? There seems like there's some ways you can go.
And one more thing on the Robert Thomas. When would you say, in your opinions, Robert Thomas became a star in the National Hockey League? Like a star number 1 center? Like 2 years ago?
Yeah, I would think shortly after O'Reilly left.
I was saying the year after O'Reilly left, I do remember people saying like, oh man, I just don't know if Robert Thomas has it. And I mean, think about that. It was 4 years into his pro career already where he won a Stanley Cup. And some of it was because they used him on the wing. He just didn't get that center experience. So you had to learn it at the NHL level. Now you've got Dvorsky learning it at the pro level in the American Hockey League, where you ask any player that plays down there, they say it's pure chaos. Like there's no structure. So you have to figure out how to dominate a league where there's no structure and go up to a league where it's all structure. It's a lot slower of a game. Bolduc said that to us a couple of years ago, where it's like, man, the AHL, when you get to the NHL, the game slows down and it opens up more space. So go be the number 1 guy in a place where it's pure chaos. And then when you get back to the NHL, then it's going to be a lot slower to you.
While we're here, just because we're here and it's top of mind, tell me, besides Dvorsky, another player or two that, God forbid, an injury pops up, that we'll see him here. I would assume on the defensive end, Hunter Skinner would be one of those guys.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a guy that gets called up. You got 7 that you're going to start the season with Matthew Kessel being the 7th guy, and Hunter Skinner was sent through waivers and cleared, and so he's in Springfield. And then I asked Doug Armstrong this question yesterday. He had a media avail, and he mentioned guys like Dvorsky, Otto Stenberg.
Yeah.
He did make a pretty good point, though, you guys. There's another guy, Kaskamaki, to keep an eye on in the next couple of years. And he said, listen, Stenberg and Kaskamaki, I'm not taking anything away from them. This is Doug talking. He said they played great. They deserve every compliment they got, but they're in support roles on the wing. They're not driving the line. And I think what he's saying here is that he was trying to kind of open everybody's eyes to the fact that, okay, Dvorsky didn't get a lot of, hey, he's looking great, he should be here type talk. That's because he's a center position. He's responsible for driving play, driving the line. That's tough to do. 20 years old, and
especially when you're doing it with some AHL guys with you at the NHL level. 2
NHL games. So the bottom line is the expectation of what they want from Dvorsky is up here, and the expectation for Stenberg and Kaskamaki on the wing is over here. And it's going to take longer for Dvorsky to get there to develop that. That's why we all this talk about could he come up and get his feet wet on the wing. So going back to your original question, Stenberg, Kaskamaki, those are guys that you could see called up if they need them.
Yeah, Stenberg, the reason I think so many people were high on him after the preseason was he looked great. But he was also playing with guys like Robert Thomas. He was playing on lines with Dylan Holloway and Braden Shannon, Pius Suter. To whereas Dvorsky, there was a couple of games where Dvorsky was playing with Carbonneau and Pekarchik, or he was playing on a line with Nick Bukestad on the wing. Like, he wasn't playing with the same caliber of players, and that goes to Armstrong's point. Dvorsky is supposed to be driving the offense. Also, Dvorsky as a centerman, you've got so many more responsibilities than just the offensive zone. Yes. Whereas if you're Stenberg or you're Kaskamaki, not saying that they don't have responsibilities, but you're not the number one guy that's focused on when the puck goes in the offensive zone, and you're not the one that's got to be thinking, crap, I got to get back and play defense when the puck goes the other way.
It's kind of like this podcast, the responsibility for you to know when to break. You got to drive this thing, and we're just the support people. Yeah. So if you read the newspaper or you go on TV and you see everybody praising us, it's because we're maximizing our support role.
Yeah. You're the Braden Shen of this group. We're just the wingers.
You're the driver, Donnie.
Dude, I love you guys so much. That's so nice. I don't even think it's true, but I really I just really love the heck out of it. So one thing before we break, and I want to talk about the Western Conference, and I want to talk about some of these crazy contracts not crazy contracts, but we've seen some big stars get signed here over the course of the last couple of days, and I want to talk about that before we're done. But before we break again, I want to talk about players that we think could maybe exceed expectations. Our own expectations in this particular season.
I'm hearing bold predictions, JR. What about you? JR's got 10 of them.
I guess so. I guess that's what this would be. Am I stealing your idea?
No, we want to focus on the players. Like
pick one player that you
get to pick one player.
Yeah. Let me tell you mine. You guys ready for this?
Tyler Tucker.
I'm about to piss off St. Louis. Let me tell you what.
You prefaced that the perfect way.
Jordan Kyrou.
Ooh.
Let me tell you something.
I got to hear this.
Right, one of the things in which that we literally just talked about it with Dvorsky, and something that we talk about very frequently on this podcast when it comes to younger players and in any sport, is the maturation of that person and that player. And it's always amazing. It's never the same way. It's never the same time. Everybody's at their own speed. But I think that this is the year that St. Louis embraces Jordan Kyrou. And I feel like this is going to be the year that the maturation and the skill come together for the player that we have really been waiting to see. We've seen great things out of Jordan Kyrou. I don't want to take that for granted, all right? But I think that we are going to see a more consistent, a better Jordan Kyrou, the best version of that guy that we have ever seen.
You think he scores 40 goals?
I think he does. And I absolutely.
After that, I think 50.
60.
Well, let's not get crazy.
You going to chase down Brett Hull's number?
But you know what I'm saying? But I really feel like with this kid, the last year or so, man, he has had his bumps and bruises, deservedly so, things that he brought on himself. But I think that you learn from those experiences, and then this young man has.
I could see that, especially the maturation that we've seen, defensively and understanding his responsibility. Yeah, you're going to need him to understand how important the puck is. 6-on-5. Some areas of the game where. We've seen him still have some hiccups, but I think you're right, Donnie. I think that he's at a point in his career, and people are going to say, yeah, he should have been at that point a couple years ago. But like you said, it takes a different amount of time for different players, and I think he's there. I think everything you said could come to fruition.
So I'll piggyback off of that because my guy is his line mate. It's Dylan Holloway. I to the same point that you just made with Jordan Kyrou, I think what Dylan Holloway did last year, he's going to take that next step and burst onto the scene. In terms of people around the NHL view it as like, oh, wow, the Blues got another star on their hands. I think Dylan Holloway has 90-point potential on that second line, which to me, you look around the NHL, there's not a lot of teams that have 90-point players that are playing second line minutes. I think Dylan Holloway is that. He's already been labeled as the hardest worker on the team by Doug Armstrong, and he said that before training camp even began. I think with Kyrou's speed and the chemistry that they built together, I think you could be looking at Dylan Holloway bursting onto the scene. I've made the comp before on BK and Ferrario, and I'll stick to this. I think Holloway can be a Kyle Connor-esque player for this Blues team.
Wow. So Donnie says, I'm going to make everybody in St. Louis mad. Alex goes with the guy who everybody loves in St. Louis.
You're welcome, St. Louis. You're welcome.
Yeah. Look, and there's varying...
Play to your roles.
Yeah, when you do a type of drill like this, there's like various ways you could look at it, right? Like who's going to have a surprise season? You could say, hey, Mayhew's going to surprise people. He's going to grab a top 4 role. You could, Jimmy Snuggerud is going to win the Calder. He's going to surprise the league. I think we're going with guys who are fairly well established. We just think they're going to have a good year. And I'm going to kind of...
This is JR's way saying a crap takes by both of you.
No.
Watch me take a better one.
Means you two took the coward's way out. Let me show you how it should be done.
Did you see how he painted that perfect picture of like, look, I think what you guys said is great, and this is why, but let me tell you why you didn't answer my question.
But my wife always says, okay, quit setting it up and just get to
quit milking it, man. Just tell us why we're wrong.
You guys are like my work wives, so this is a situation. No, I'm going to go with an established guy too. I'm just going to go with a guy who doesn't typically score 35 goals, Dylan Holloway, Jordan Kyrou. So I'm going to go with Pavel Buchnevich, and I say that for this reason. He's had a couple down years, right? Especially offensively. And in part, I think it's because, them tried to make him a center, and he's not a center. And, I understand why they wanted to make it work. They didn't have a lot of depth there, and the team, as Doug Armstrong said, the winning percentage was good when he played in the middle, but he obviously feels more comfortable on the wing. Yep. Now you got him on a line with Thomas and Snuggerud. We like what Thomas is doing. We think that Snuggerud's got a ton of potential, and I think Buchnevich is going to help that line. Look, you can't look 2 years ago and say he can repeat that, but he scored 30 goals 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, when Jim Montgomery was an assistant coach on this team. And, he's got a good relationship with Jim Montgomery. So I think Monty's going to get the best out of Buchnevich. And also that new contract kicks in this year, right? 6-year deal. Look, he's a good guy. He's a professional. He understands what's asked of him. And, he's a guy who, I don't know him, but when you're in the locker room, you talk to him, you can tell that he wants to uphold his end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to see that this year from
why he signed the contract.
One of us went out on a limb a little bit. 2 of us did not.
Literally, we all went with top 6 forwards. Can I give you one more, though?
Now we want to do multiple.
No. You brought this up because, like, I it's not even a player. It's an area of the team. Watch out for this defense. I looked at this the other day. Do you know the last time the Blues, as an organization, had 3 or more defensemen with 40 or more points in a season? In one season, 3 defensemen with 40-plus points.
Well, it would have had to have been like a McInnes days, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go late 90s.
They've never had it.
Never had it.
Wow. They have never had 3 defensemen with 40 or more points. I went back and looked at it. They've had 2 guys with 50 or more points, but that third guy has always been around like 20 or 30. I said this when they acquired Mayhew, and I said, like, I think this might be the best 6 that the Blues as an organization has ever had. And it still sounds like an odd take to say when you have multiple Hall of Famers on one defensive unit. But look at those teams and look at their 5-6. Like, look at this 5-6. It's Logan Mayhew that they believe is a top 4 defenseman. Yeah. It's Tyler Tucker, who, when he was out of the playoffs last year, was like, oh, they can't lose this guy. I think between Broberg, Fowler, Parayko. To me, that's guys that I would guarantee 40 or more points. And then it's a wild card. Does Falk create more on the power play? Does Mayu get chances? So that's an area that I would say watch out for this season. Like, they might do something that franchise has never done before.
Ooh, that's bold.
Is that bold?
He picked two things, like increase the chances.
Look, I'm going to use my Men in Black flasher. It never happened.
Wait, I'm going to do 3 more, Donnie. Just
10 more, please. 10 more.
All right, we're going to finish up. More of the Last Minute Blues podcast coming your way next. All right, so gentlemen, as we get ready for the season to begin tomorrow night, I want to talk about this Western Conference. Obviously, we feel as though the Blues are going to be very good. Can you guys kind of talk about who we should be looking at as the cream of the crop right now in the West? Maybe do you see anybody that made the playoffs last year falling off? Do you see a team like Calgary pushing through to make it into the playoffs this year? Kind of, how do you look at the Western Conference and what the Blues are going to be fighting?
Yeah, I still like the top teams that we talked about last year with Dallas. They have a new coach, and I think that was the right move. It didn't seem like they were going to push forward with Pete DeBoer, your guy.
Man,
your guy.
Boy, did Sourpuss screw that up for himself or what?
You saw that happening, didn't you, Donnie?
Dude, but I mean, like, legitimately, you're tearing down your franchise goaltender in the gosh dang finals. Like, what?
Not pretty.
Where is that guy going to go next? I can't wait to find out. But anyway,
no. So Jamie Benn's going to be out for a little while, right? But I think that they still have the pieces there. Like, you just look at their lineup and you look at the top 3 lines with the forwards, and I think they're going to be good. And I think Andres, he's going to build from that learning experience last year from the playoffs, and Pete DeBoer's comments, and now he's got the new coach that's supporting him. So I think Dallas is going to be there. I like Colorado. I like any team that Nathan McKinnon's on.
Yeah, understandable.
And Winnipeg, lost a piece or two, and you still worry about the goaltending when you get to the playoffs there. So I look at Colorado, and then out west in the Pacific, Alex, who we like.
Vegas is probably the number 1 team with Marner, although I'm not as bought into Vegas.
Can I ask this question real quick about Vegas? One of the things that I've heard quite a bit is people questioning the depth on their defense with the loss of Petro for the year, and then was it Nicholas Hague
that they moved on to Nashville?
Moved as well. So
that's my biggest concern about that team. I think defensively they're not as strong. Marner is great. You got another 100-point player.
You're going to score
score a ton, but you better plan to win hockey games 5-4, 6-5, because your best defensemen, Noah Hannafin and Shea Theodore, who are very good, but now your depth is McNabb and Whitecloud, and then I don't think they have a whole lot beyond that, and your goaltending. Now, I know there was rumors of potentially Carter Hart signing there. I don't know if that's happening, but they lost Aiden Hill for a significant amount of time last year. Mm-hmm. You don't really have the depth on goalie. So Vegas is viewed, I think they were the second best favorite in the Western Conference behind Edmonton to win the Cup. I don't buy it. I think they're going to be a top 3 team in the Pacific, but I don't buy that they're going to be as dominant as people are making them out to be. And then you've got Edmonton, who's probably going to be the number 1 team.
Yeah, you got to like Edmonton, especially when Connor McDavid takes $6 to come back.
Yeah, seriously. Go spend this elsewhere, guys.
Go spend
By
money.
the way, good luck trying to find a goalie with that amount of money, because that's not happening in the NHL anymore.
Somewhere else. And then I like what LA's been doing to a point, the past couple years.
One I'm skeptical on.
I just feel like some of those players that they drafted a few years ago, I think that they're ready to come up and play better. Alex already said earlier in the show that he likes San Jose to win the Pacific.
That's true. I did. Watch out. Not just the Pacific, the Cup, when you got Evander Kane and Ryan Reeves on one team together, right? But they're not on the same team, are they? No. Kane's on Vancouver. Reeves is on San Jose. They'll see each other a lot. No. So remember this, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to predict the standings for you right now. I think Dallas, Colorado, and St. Louis are your top 3 in the Central.
Okay.
I think Winnipeg dips. I think Winnipeg is still in the playoffs, but they're a wild card team. I think Minnesota's a wild card team, so you get 5 Central Division teams in the playoffs. And then I think you've got Edmonton, Vegas, and I think Anaheim gets in as that 3rd team.
Anaheim.
I think, I think LA falls off a little bit.
The Coach Q factor?
I don't know if it's the Coach Q more so than it's just they reloaded that roster. Like, you bring in Chris Kreider, you bring in Jacob Trouba last year. You've got now Strome, who was the guy that they got from New York a couple of years ago as well, another forward. They're deep. They've got some really good draft picks in Leo Carlson and McTavish. Zegras is off the team right now. They got a goaltending. They don't have to deal with the controversy anymore of Gibson. They would be my dark horse team that I think gets in, and I think LA dips off a little bit. But 5 teams from the Central, that's my boldest prediction there. I think you're going to see Minnesota, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Colorado, and Dallas all in the playoffs this year.
Man.
I just got a text from John Kelly, said, tell Alex he's wrong.
Yeah, sorry, JK. Sorry, JK. But you're on ESPN, so we'll see you still in the playoffs.
This West is going to be...
it's a juggernaut.
It's going to be something else.
I didn't even mention Utah and Calgary.
Yeah, Utah's coming up.
Right there last year. So, like, you're realistically talking about 10 or 11 teams fighting for 8 spots in the playoffs.
And again... stressing, you got to come out of the gate strong, man. You cannot afford to get behind any of these guys. All right, so over the course of the last week, we saw Kaprizov get signed, then McDavid get signed. I guess Kyle Connor got a deal 12. Earlier today. It's kind of crazy to me how once Kaprizov signed, how it seemingly all kind of fell into place. Or I guess was it more...
It was McDavid.
Was it McDavid? Yeah. And then it's all kind of falling into place from there.
I think Kaprizov was in just an entity of his own because the Wild knew they had to keep him and they were going to pay him whatever he wanted. I think teams are waiting to see McDavid sign. And when McDavid signed for 12.5, I don't know this to be a fact. I just wonder if players are like, well, damn, if McDavid's not taking more than 12.5 to stay with the team to try and build a cup, I can't go out there and ask for 14 mil.
Sure.
And if you're Kyle Connor, like, you're an incredible player, probably could have got more on the market. But instead, you're like, look, $12 million is what I'm worth, but it also gives you guys opportunities to build some. That's the part that I'm most curious about. If other stars around the league see the McDavid move and are like, if I want to win, I got to take less so my team can remain competitive.
But isn't this also McDavid saying to the Edmonton Oilers management, all right, homies, we got 2 years on this bad boy. And at the end of, I would
3,
think too.
He's got this one.
He's got this. All right.
Yeah.
But you got 3 years to make this happen. And if it's not, don't you, maybe he's going somewhere else to try to win if they haven't.
Yeah. And when we saw the 12.5, we know that that's the type of guy he is in terms of, hey, I just want to win. But I think it was also, Donnie, kind of what you're saying is that, hey, listen, I'm going to take the less money and I want to be here and I want to win here. But I'm only going to take 2 years plus the year 3, and we got to get it done now. So I think he's going to come out looking good either way because he took the $12.5 million. So let's say they don't do it in the next 3 years. Are people going to begrudge Connor McDavid for leaving?
No,
I think gave it every opportunity to work.
I think this makes it easier for people to understand McDavid leave. If you look at that and you say, you just basically told the Edmonton Oilers, you got $12 million over the next 2 years to play with. Make me a contender.
Right. And I also say, going back to Kaprizov, first of all, does this say anything about the two players? And I am not saying that it does with Kaprizov, but you have one guy who says, 16 million won't work.
Yeah.
And then he settles a week, 2 weeks later for 17. And you got another guy who says, I'll take 12. I do say, though, that, there's not guys around the league who can just make the extra money that McDavid can make by just...
Well, that's true. And you're up in Canada, so you're bringing in we don't know that side of it. But still, though, if you're Kaprizov, you're making, I would imagine, money endorsements in Minnesota, too. Like, Minnesota's a very large hockey market, and you're the star of that place. I thought the same thing. And again, to each is his own. Like, good for him to go out there and get your money. But, man, there's just two different styles of it. You either want the most money possible, and then, hopefully I'm the reason why we win a Stanley Cup, but I want to get paid. Or you're like Connor McDavid, who have watched Sidney Crosby take less, have watched Ovechkin take less than the market, probably grew up watching Steve Yzerman and Joe Sakic take less so that they can win cups. I saw somebody on Twitter bring this up. The year that Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne went to Colorado, they signed for $1 million each so that they could go win a cup. Now, it can't work. Those teams didn't win cups, but if I'm Kaprizov, it's like $17 million is great. But, man, are you going to be able to build a contender around me? Because there's no more of these top 5 picks that you're going to be bringing in. This is it. We're competitive now. How good are you at drafting and developing? How many of these guys can you keep around? Because when all of these players start to age, where am I going to be at? Because now I'm here. You can't really go spend a lot of money. I don't know what those teams look like.
And to tie this into the Blues, it just makes these contracts for Thomas and Kyrou.
Oh, God, a steal.
You're talking about half of what Kaprizov makes, and the cap's going to go up to $113 million, and these guys are making $8 million for the next, it's like 5 years after this year.
And you're starting to see, sorry, Donnie, you're also starting to see a blueprint of what the next contracts could look like depending on if Holloway and Broberg continue to take that next step.
Right on. Bam, man. Well, guys, friggin' hockey's here.
Did we take the second break?
I was going to say, we got the 2 breaks in.
Yep, we got the 2 breaks.
You did mention Jeff.
I mentioned the sponsor from the beginning. We mentioned Jeff throughout, so
That's
I think
true.
we're covered in that regard.
Okay. Whoever answers the emails, answered them.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Whomever it
emails.
concerns.
I feel as though we've checked all the boxes.
I
here,
think
guys.
this was 110%, Donnie.
It is the Last Minute Blues podcast for our dude Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN handling your Blues pre and post game, and our dude Jeff Burton, who we miss a ton. Remember, you can send us emails, lmbp at 1057thepoint.com. It is the Last Minute Blues podcast. I'm Donnie Fandango. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And as always, let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.